And I'll just make a further comment. John will open this, and then we're fortunate to have Dan Gallagher, who's the, is it chair, Dan, or what's your title with OpenCape? CEO of OpenCape, who's been a resource for us all, and has offered his time and effort to help John and the committee, and is going to follow John's presentation with his presentation.
One more handout. Trust me, we're not going through that page by page, what I just handed you. It's 40 pages.
It wouldn't matter. We wouldn't look at 40 pages anyway, so. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity to share major elements of the strategic plan for OpenCape for the town of Harwich. There have been a number of people who have been involved in this project, and this represents the culmination of a collaborative effort on the part of the public sector and the private sector, working very effectively together to make this happen. Before I get started, though, I want to introduce the people who are in the audience who are part of that team. We have Jeremy Dingris from the Chamber, David Condon, David Spitz, Foster Banford, Ginny Hewitt. Did I miss anybody? Okay. Who are, without their help and others as well, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
They did a great job.
So super job, just super job. What I want to do tonight is, and I'm also happy to see Dan in the audience as well, because anything that I anything that I misspell or whatever regarding OpenCape or misspeak, then he can correct me on it. I want to take you back just to give you a very brief conversation about what is OpenCape, and from that to review the charge you gave this team initially, the things you wanted us to accomplish. Then I'll show you a list of the team members. We'll talk about the approach that we used to the development of the plan itself. We'll talk more specifically about the methodology that we used in each phase of this plan and its development and major findings. And then I think the thing which really, when the rubber meets the road, what are the action plans? What are we going to do to help us to get from where we are today to where we think we need to be in January 2013? And then we'll talk about next steps and then Q&A. Okay? Yep. Sound good. All right. So let's get started. By the way, the two documents I handed you, one is the final plan, which I'm not going to go over. I'm just going to give you highlights of that tonight. You can read that at your leisure. And the second one is a two-page, it's a double-sided document. Two of the slides in this presentation are hard to see up on this big screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference that document you have in front of you. You can flip it over, okay, when I get to that, and I'll highlight what's on there and some key points from it. Now, what is OpenCape? It's a 350-mile fiber optic network that is going to cover the Cape, and you see I guess it's purple, that goes from the Bourne Bridge down to Falmouth, over to Harwich, to Chatham, up to Orleans, to Truro, and Provincetown, and then back down along 6A. Good thing it's going that way because it gives us redundancy in the sense of if one leg goes down, then we keep the other legs up and we can continue the communication. In addition to that, there's a 700 megahertz microwave system, which is going to be an overlay system for public safety, and you can see that in green, and you can see where it goes. So we've got a combination of technologies here which are going to help us to increase reliability, speed, and throughput to help us with broadband technology for very specific applications in the future and set us up for the future for all kinds of benefits. That network is going to connect 71 what they call CAIs. As you can see, the community action institutions, our anchor institutions, 3 of which are in Harwich. First one's Cape Cod Tech. Second one is the public safety complex on Sisson Road. And third is Harwich and the Harwich Brooks Free Library. And that was all part of the grant. And one of the reasons we got that is because of the importance of connecting those facilities, not only within Harwich, but also all the other towns on the Cape. In terms of deployment, Now, I want to highlight some things for you. This right here is that network coming into Harwich from Dennisport along 28, and then it comes all the way out toward Chatham, then up into East Harwich, and then it goes up, I think it's Church Street, in toward Orleans. And you can see it coming back along 6A. Now, in addition to that, there's a lateral that runs, we call them laterals, that run off of the major backbone up into Harwich Center to the library here and also up to Cape Cod Tech. There's another lateral that runs up 137 up to the intersection of 137 and 39. Okay, so those are the major components of what OpenCape is going to be when it's deployed within Harwich itself. And you can also see then the microwave towers coming down in the red. Any questions on the plan right now for deployment of OpenCape within Harwich?
Physically, John, what's the difference between the lateral and the main? Is there any? It's just because it sticks out from the. I mean, it has the same bandwidth and so on.
It has the same bandwidth, it's just a fewer number of fibers, and it may not be as the backbone is 144 strands of fiber. That lateral is, I think, 48 strands of fiber. Okay. So there's fewer numbers, and it doesn't have a redundant loop obviously built into the lateral.
Thanks for the question. Now, you as a board could have taken two positions. One is, let's wait for January 2013 to come, and that's when OpenCape becomes operational, and then figure out what to do with it. But I know, Larry, you came to me and said, we don't want to be there. We want to be proactive in the sense of, let's look at what the possibilities are for this technology, look at where we are today, and what do we need to do to move from point A to point B. More specifically, you asked us to do 4 things. And you see them listed there. I'm not going to read all the words, but basically it says in the first bullet, where are we today relative to what our use of technology and the use of broadband, specifically. And you notice everything is municipal business. This is against a collaborative effort looking at the public sector and the private sector. The second one is look at the current available technologies, the internet capabilities, and what we expect to happen when OpenCape is deployed in January 2013, when it's operational. The third part looks in the future and says, okay, it's now January 2013. What are we doing with broadband? Not just with OpenCape, but broadband generically. And the last one is, and most important is, to bring these 2 points together is, we know where we are today, we know where we want to be come 2013 and beyond. How do we get from one place to another? So 4 pieces of this, and as I go through this plan, the highlights of this plan, think about those 4 pieces, because we believe we've hit them all. Before we get there, I talked about this being a collaborative effort in the part of the public sector and the private sector. I believe it's worked very well. I know early on I separated these 2 groups for a meeting, and I got some feedback immediately. We do not want to be doing this individually and separately. We want to be working together to share perspectives on the use of technology, and we learn from each other. And it's happened throughout the last 6 months. So I did 1 meeting separate. That was the last time. Everybody worked together, everybody shared, including the action plans, which were shared across from the public sector to the private sector, and we're going to leverage each other's knowledge and our new findings to benefit everybody. But you can see all the major departments within the town, as well as all the major industries in town. The only one that's missing is healthcare. And the information I got was when we approached Fontaine, their position was that they're being a division of Cape Cod Healthcare. There are conversations going on directly with Cape Cod Healthcare between them and OpenCape. Dan, you may know more about this than I do. But in any case, any decision that's made by Cape Cod Healthcare, Fontaine will follow. They'll follow that lead. So hence, they were not represented here. But that's about the only exception to the rule here. And again, without these people, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Okay, let's talk about the general approach that we use for the development of this plan. First phase was, where are we today? I call that phase 1, and that's complete. Second part is, says, okay, it's now January 2013. Where are we going to be in the use of technology, and more specifically broadband, irrespective of whether it's OpenCape or just Comcast or some other broadband provider. And the most important thing is, how are we going to get from here to there? All those phases are now complete, and you have the final plan in your hands. Each of the various team members represented either a department or an industry, and they were asked to put together an action plan, all those steps in between in phase 3, that's going to help them get from where their industry or department is and where it will be. So let's take a look at this and more specifically. All right, this is where you pull out that sheet, okay? And look at the side that says current state. One of our team members, Errol James, created a tool to help us to focus our efforts on looking at all the various things that we do with broadband technology today. And it's also used for what we plan to use to do it with in the future. Now, this is one of only four pages. And down the left, which you'll see here, are all the various, he calls them applications, I call them functions, that we perform today. Some systems that we currently have in place enable one or more of the functions on the left-hand side, the applications on the left-hand side. There are 139 of these. 139, so it's pretty comprehensive. Across the top, for those of you who can't read it, are each of the representatives on this team. Town administration, that was Foster and David Spitz. And then we go from there, okay, to police, fire, ambulance and public safety, and that was Scott Tilsley. Jim Birchfield did education, and so on and so forth. Now, using this tool, looking again at where are we today, the first ask that you had, each person was to identify which of the 139 functions they currently perform using broadband. For example, in this case, facilities management and town administration. They say they use broadband technology to manage facilities in town. Second thing they were asked to do is for those things that you identified you currently do using broadband, how well do you do it? A 1 means you're doing it now and it's done poorly. 2 is fair, 3 is good, 4 is very good, and 5 is excellent. If it's blank, we don't do it. Okay? So as you look across, for example, facilities management, they say, yes, we do it. Okay, we perform that function, we use broadband technology, and we do it well. Can you see what I'm pointing to now, the current state? The same kind of interpretation results you can see if you look at any one of the cells in that box. If you look over, for example, at water, in terms of workforce management, they use broadband technology, and they feel they do it very, very well. Again, these are self-rated. In some cases, people were extremely honest and said, you know something, we do these things, sort of. And they were very honest, which we appreciated, saying there's opportunities for improvement. Okay? Let's summarize all of this. As Angela would say, just tell me what it says, okay? Key findings. 130, and I'll separate public sector from private sector. There were 139 possible applications or functions that can be performed using broadband technology. Of that in the public sector, 74% of those applications were found to be used using broadband. And of those, 103, 63% were either being done very well or excellent. 63%. Looking at the private sector, same number of possible applications. Of that, 96 or almost 70% are being done using broadband. 57% are either being done very well or excellent. So we're doing some things very well, but there's opportunities for improvement. Some of which could be through connections to OpenCape, in other words, increased throughput and reliability, and I'll give you some other reasons where we can also improve, but that's certainly one of them. We'll give you some sense of the reasons for the high scores and low scores. We've got resident expertise within a specific department. Ginny, for example, in the library, Scott Tilsley in public safety, Sandy Cummings in water. We've got people, and Jim Birchfield in education. We've got a number of people throughout town in various town departments who have expertise that's resident within the organization. However, it varies tremendously. It varies tremendously. Same thing occurs in the private sector. We've got some people who are very conversant with technology and leverage it beyond what we can imagine. There are lots of other people, however, a lot of small businesses in town who basically do not take advantage of technology, do not leverage it, and therefore they face increasing challenges. There are existing industry solutions, some of which sit on the cloud, some of which sit on our desktops, computers. And some people candidly are just saying, you know, I'm satisfied with what I get through Comcast right now. And I don't anticipate that OpenCape is going to give me anything that's going to be any better. I think there were some ahas that came out of this exercise that said, perhaps not.